My name is Sophia Cotton. I'm 22. I have a 1-year-old son. I'm a single mom. I make $7.50 an hour at McDonald's. Nothing. I make $230 to $240 every 2 weeks. I've been working.
Now, note she says she makes around $240 every 2 weeks. Nobody can possibly survive on that. And of course, she's a minimum wage McDonald's employee. Now, this video ran 9 years ago, but I believe that the things that are happening in our society today are certainly related to what's going on 9 years ago in this video. So that's why we're going to watch it. And really quickly, if you did not catch the 2 uploads yesterday, one of them was on broke and hungry TikTokers, and the other one was on paying Parent Plus loans, about a couple who's paying Parent Plus loans for 18 years. So those both will be linked at the bottom. But I want you to see that the struggles that she's going through, okay, a lot of people are doing that today. And put in the comments, do you feel this is, what is it they call it, nature versus nurture? Okay, so is this her environment that's put her in this situation? The poverty and stuff that she's been raised in? Or is it her own personal choices that have put her in this situation? This is a very depressing documentary. So, but I want to keep in perspective of, what is it that has her in this situation? Who is to blame, in essence?
Working there for almost a year. I haven't had a raise since I started working there. Day of a slow week, you going home every day. I came into work one morning, I had to be there at 7. And once the general manager came in, she came in like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and she was like, oh, okay, well, Sophia, you can clock out. And I'm like, well, I just got here. She's like, oh, well, we don't need you, labor's high. You can go ahead and clock out.
One of the things that I've always known, and that is, and a lot of young people unfortunately don't know this, the less skilled you are, clearly, the more abusive situation you are going to work in. And I think it's because the people who work the bottom skill level jobs, okay, I'm talking about the jobs. I'm not talking about the people themselves being the bottom, okay? But the jobs. Clearly, working at McDonald's as a 20-year-old, has a baby and no, from what I can see, no planned future, okay? That's going to be considered kind of the bottom rung. And it is my belief that a lot of poor managers who manage those people, they couldn't care less about them. And it's because they know that the people they are overseeing are vulnerable. They're the most vulnerable class of people. They're not the people who can easily walk out and go, hey, you know what? You keep calling me into work and I show up and then you dismiss me. And of course, that means I go home without pay. So in essence, you're kind of jerking around my paycheck. Somebody with more skill and stuff clearly does not have to put up with that. Not saying that, just upping and quitting a job would be easy for anybody. But the bottom line is the more skills and knowledge and education you have, clearly the easier time you have leaving. So in this particular case, her being called in, and I don't know about you, but I used to work fast food when I was in college. Okay. I think it was about my second and third year in college. I worked fast food. And the managers there, I mean, they got a big ego trip. That they really do. And I think a lot of it is because, this is just my theory, a lot of those people who go into management, they came up from the bottom themselves. So being a manager, and when I say manager, I'm not talking store manager. That might even require a degree or something. I'm talking the floor shift manager. I should probably be very clear with that. Okay. But oftentimes, they've scraped their way from the bottom and now they're shift manager and they think they're all that. Oh, I know when I worked at McDonald's, and I'm not saying this is just McDonald's employees necessarily, but man, some of the most stuck up managers worked at McDonald's, the nicest managers, hands down, that I ever worked for in my early 20s when I was going to school. So my late teens, early 20s, Wendy's, hands down, no questions asked. Best, fairest, kindest. So we can't say it's about all managers across the board, clearly. But there's a lack of concern or care for the employees that you bring into work, and then you tell them to turn around and go home.
It's not really matter to them if we making our hours and getting paid. I got $261 in food stamps last month. Then they deducted it to $216. To go through the whole month for $216 is feeding my son, me, every day, like feeding breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Okay, so let's take a look at this here real quick. Okay, food stamps. $216 in food stamps, which equals $2,592 a year. I spend about $500 a month just for me. That's about $6,000 a year in food for me. That almost makes me, that's almost embarrassing when you think about it. Okay. And it's sad because so oftentimes, people go, somebody has a few $100s in food stamps. It's not so great when you take it and you remember there are 30 days in a month divided over 30 days. And you can also tell, she's out of shape. She's sleeping poorly. She's living poorly. She's eating poorly. Poverty costs so much more than what we see. We just see, okay, it costs this much in WIC, SNAP, food stamps, but it's what it's costing in people's health. I don't think you can put a dollar on it, but it's got to be in the billions. It has to be in what people lose in health because of poverty.
So I'll buy like frozen foods that I can keep in the refrigerator, on the freezer. I don't buy fresh fruits and stuff like that because it's not guaranteed that it'll be eaten all.
And also fresh fruits and vegetables, expensive. It's a difficult because I go to the grocery store and like I was there the other day. I mean, dang, they want $3 a pound plus for grapes. They want, $2.50, $3 a pound for a few peaches and pears. And I have a job that pays, decently for one person, not for a whole family, but for one person. I don't buy a lot of that stuff. I usually go to Costco, buy grapes, oranges, lemons, things like that, but it's too expensive. You can't afford fresh fruits and vegetables when you are poor. And even though she says it might not be eaten, no, it's not because of that. In her case, it's because it's just too expensive. And even like when I go to Costco, I can buy a whole bag of frozen strawberries. I think it's like 4 pounds because I buy them, and I can buy that for about, I don't know, $8. So why would I go and buy 2 little containers of fresh strawberries that are going to cost me $3-4 each? So even on my income, I buy limited fresh fruit. Don't get me wrong, I buy it, but it's very limited. Most of the time I buy frozen. And as you know, a lot of people, when you are poor, it's all starch. It's starchy, it's high sugar, it's processed.
Make it stretch. Come on. With child care, I get CCIS, which is like covers your child care or any daycare that you would like your child to go to. I do pay a copayment for $10 a week.
Okay, let me stop this here, bring this up. So childcare, $140 every week, $7,280 per year.
His dad's actually incarcerated, so it's like just me. Come on.
All right, we have to stop there. Let's bring it back to the question, okay? Is her life situation, is it her environment that she's been raised in, or is it her choices? So baby daddy is incarcerated. What are the chances? Like I said, this was 9 years ago. I'm willing to bet if statistics hold, they are not in any better of a spot today. If statistics hold, excuse me, they're still living in the same type of neighborhood. He may or may not, become a high school graduate. He wouldn't be old enough yet because it was 9 years ago and he's a baby here. So he'd be about 10. Okay. The odds are stacked against them for her son to be successful and for her to work her way out of poverty. It's not as simple as just pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, like so many people like to say. We have to partly remember, too, To get out of poverty, you need to have connections to the right people. You need to be able to impress the right people, that from the hiring managers, okay, the people that guide you, the mentors that you're going to have. You need to be able to have people around you. You need access to those resources. And this is why so oftentimes when, someone says, well, just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, we're not all Oprah Winfrey's. Okay. Everybody likes to point to one extreme and go, but that person did it. Okay. That person out of billions in the world. How, considering her environment, her neighborhood, the people she hangs around, probably even her comfort level. Who do you think she's going to go to pull herself up by the bootstraps? People will say there are social services and stuff. Okay. But still, they're not going to do it for you. You have to find that internal drive to do it yourself. And not everybody has the internal drive to do it themselves and to stick to it. So assuming that the kid now is 10, statistically, they're still in the same situation. There might be a modest amount of improvement. Another thing I'd like to know is baby daddy, why is baby daddy in jail?
Safi, I want my son to not have to struggle the way I struggle. He's going to have a good paying job. He's not going to have to pick through anything. He's like, I'm going to do anything he want to do, he'll be able to do.
Okay. I forgot that part was coming up right afterwards. She says, I don't want my son to struggle like she's struggling. But what she fails to realize is her son is struggling. He's in the struggle right along with her. He's not getting the nutrition he needs. He's not getting he may, people might go, but I love him. Love isn't enough. Love doesn't feed a hungry belly. Take them to the doctors when they need medication and they're sick. Sometimes, when I first saw this video a few years back, I thought to myself, I'm adopted. For me, this would be a situation for adoption. And her depression throughout this video, it's palpable. It really is. And you can just sit and imagine, in many ways, sometimes I think that somebody wanting to be a parent, well, it can be the most giving thing. I sometimes think it can also be the most selfish thing. And in this case, to me, from my perspective, feel free to disagree in the comments. By all means, please feel free to chat. Okay. My perspective, this is the ultimate of selfish. You're going to make this child suffer because you won't let the child go to a family that can take care of them because you can't even take care of yourself. I was given up at 4 days old to an orphanage in Saigon, Vietnam. Birth mother could not take care of me. And because it was during the war, clearly birth father is Black, and that wasn't going to go so well in Saigon, Vietnam during the era of the Vietnam War. So they shuffled me off, and fortunately so, to an orphanage where I got adopted. But I don't know. I just think, she says, I don't want my son to suffer. He is suffering. He will continue to suffer. And if statistics draw out that, I would say there's an unlikely chance he's going to graduate from high school. There's definitely little to no chance he'll ever have a relationship with his father. Not that he's someone you'd want to have a relationship with. And she's going to continue to live in poverty and bounce from job to job. I'm just saying statistics hold.
Give me a cup. My number one always is to make sure that my rent is paid. So I make sure that we have somewhere to live. Me and my sister split it. We paid $220 a piece. 1,030 pays $125 of it for us.
Okay, so let me stop here. I just like to make sure you guys can see it. Housing benefits, she pays $125 every month, $1,500 per year. And people go, oh, well, gee, that's nice. This is what I always say. Would you ever want to trade what you have for what they've got? I had a family member, I will not name who, but at one point, this was years ago, okay, I was in college. They went on Section 8 and they wound up living in a place that was nicer than what I had. They were on Section 8. They lived in a much nicer place, okay? But in the end, eventually they got their life squared away and stuff. But, it's easy at times to look at something and go, man, give me $125 a month of rent. But in the end, do you really want that? No, you don't, because what it means is you have not figured out how to help yourself. And only when you can help yourself can you get yourself out of poverty.
One of my checks was $238, and it was like the week that rent was due. So it was like I paid the rent, I had no other choice. But then I found myself borrowing and borrowing. So when my next check come, that's my check that I use like to get diapers, my son some clothes, like that's.
Okay, so all that borrowing, we know where that's coming from, right? It's either coming from payday loans, which is all over in poor neighborhoods, or it's coming from people that she's borrowed from.
The check that I use to get those things. So it's like I find myself breaking into that because I have to pay everybody back. I only go to the doctor like if I need to go or I have no other choice to go, I'll go. I did a root canal for one of my back teeth and it was like, well, you know, if you get a root canal, it's, I think they told me it was like around $300 something, but they needed like a down payment. Like I couldn't, either I had to pay the whole thing or put down like half down payment. So I'm just like, okay, well, how much would it be like to pull a tooth or whatever? And they like, oh, well, it's free to pull a tooth, but we'd rather not pull a tooth because it's savable. And then I'm like, well, I'd rather you pull it because it's like I can't pay for it, but it's bothering me and I don't want the pain, so I'd rather you just pull a tooth. It's not really what you want to do, but it's what you have to settle for because you can't afford to get the right dental care.
My teeth are all naturally mine. I've been told that I've been told that I could do a Colgate or Crest commercial. Okay. But I will tell you this, they're all mine, but they have cost thousands over the years to maintain. I've probably have had, let's see, I think I've probably have had about 4 root canals. I've had a couple of crowns. I mean, it is expensive. Dental care is expensive. And here's something that people don't think about when it comes to dental care. Okay. Dental care has so much to do with your self-esteem. It does. The smile that you give, okay, when you're smiling and when you're going out and you're wanting to feel confident, and if your teeth, I mean, people, what is that? I told my dentist once, because I've been to the same dentist for like 15 years, and I said, you know, people always worry about their car and they worry about other things, but what's one of the last things people tend to worry about? It's their teeth. Whereas oddly enough, for me, it's one of the first things I worry about. Okay, is my teeth, because your smile and the way you look has a lot to do with your self-esteem. I'm not saying that, you know, if you have missing teeth or things like that, that that's anything to fault over. What I am saying though, excuse me, it's that for a lot of people, that is connected to their self-esteem, how they feel. And so when you are poor and you can't keep that smile that you want to keep, and all you can do is have your teeth pulled because it's free to pull your teeth, but it's going to cost you $1,000 for a root canal. Okay. A couple years back, I had a $2,000 medical bill with multiple crowns and root canals. And that was after insurance. All right. So yeah, I see totally why she would have her teeth pulled. It's a whole lot cheaper. But to me, to people who are poor and are already struggling with self-esteem, that's just one more chip away at their self-esteem. It's a part of them. And we're removing it because they don't have the money to keep it. I hope that makes sense. It's not about the tooth per se. It's what is being done to them to chip away at who they are. So I have root canal problems. I can get it fixed. I have. Somebody else has root canal problems because they don't have the same money. They don't have the same access to our messed up dental and medical care here in the United States. And I'm not even going to go off on that. Okay. They have to have that part of them permanently removed. That would take away my self-esteem.
If I wasn't getting like rent assistance, food stamps, or childcare help, I think I would still be like living in a shelter or something because I wouldn't be able to pay rent and take care of my son and, you know, make sure he clothed and fed off of the checks that I received from McDonald's.
Is there a point where adoption is better? Is there a point where you have to sometimes admit, look, I can't take care of you. Loving you is not taking care of you. It's not. And the depression, I mean, the first time I saw this, I was like, dang, you know, absolutely depressing. Where do you find hope in her situation?
Come on, eat. It bothers me that I have to rely on government help, and I know that they making billions and billions of dollars. Like, it's like, why should I have to rely on them when I'm working for you? I should be able to rely on you to pay me for doing the things that you want me to do for you. And I believe that sooner or later it'll change, and I won't be struggling, and I won't have to, pick from eating and buying my son something. Like, I'll be able to do both.
But statistically, 9 years later, she's going to be in the same spot. Thanks for watching. The title of this article is, I Thought It Was a Joke. North Carolina woman loses $850,000 home after missed $400 payment to HOA, which leads to foreclosure. The author is Christian Boone. It was published on March 2025, and the publishing company is Atlanta Black Star. This article will be in the description box in case you would like to read it uninterrupted, as I will have commentary throughout the article. Let's do it. A fight over one missed $400 payment cost a North Carolina woman her home, which was later flipped for nearly $900,000. All right. I live in Florida. There are HOAs everywhere in Florida. It's very hard to get to find property outside an HOA. It is possible, okay, but it is difficult. So this woman owed $400 to her HOA, did not pay it. The HOA forecloses on the home, which is allowed in most HOAs, okay? And I guess somebody else bought it, and they flipped it for almost $900,000. Taylor Sanders saw none of that profit. Taylor Sanders must be the owner. She now views herself as a cautionary tale. The lesson: don't underestimate the power of your neighborhood HOA. I have to be honest, I already knew that lesson, and it didn't take me going into a $900,000 home foreclosure to learn that. So just, observation, but that is the lesson she's teaching. Don't underestimate your HOA, okay? This is just the beginning, she told Action 9 News in Charlotte. I think that's North Carolina. I want to make sure I educate other people. I want to make sure they know about it. I want them to know their rights. Charlotte may be in South Carolina. I get my Carolinas confused. Forgive me. Okay, this is her. Taylor's Sanders story goes back 5 years when she was last informed she owed $400 in unpaid dues to the HOA. I guess it's called Weddington Hills. So she owes $400. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, to be totally honest, for unpaid dues, $400. Now, I understand money's all relative, okay? We've had two assessments. They've totaled about probably $3,500 in the 5 years I've lived here, so I'm not really complaining. But yeah, those HOAs, you have to take them seriously. The HOA sent her multiple letters, but Sanders told Action News she never received them. She acknowledges the $400 debt. Stop. Okay, this is Sanders. Okay. So she's saying, I acknowledge, I understand, okay, that there is a $400 HOA fee. She acknowledges it. But she said that because she didn't get a letter in the mail, she didn't get letters in the mail or whatever, stating that she owed it, I guess she thought that she could just ignore it. See, it says here, she never received the letters. She acknowledges $400 debt. It's kind of like this. The electric company may forget to send you a bill. Maybe it gets lost in the mail. Maybe you didn't get the email. However, guess what? Regardless whether you got a bill, you still owe it. And here's the other thing. You know you owe it. Yes. Oh, but we didn't get the bill, so it must not be owed. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just like when you go to the store and there isn't a price tag on something, it doesn't mean the item is free. Okay. So just because you didn't get the bill doesn't mean that the bill does not exist. So, and the fact that she acknowledges the debt, that tells me she's fully aware of it. I don't know. This is 5 years ago. I mean, dang, 400, that's not that bad, folks. When you're talking in terms of real estate. Yes, $400 for what is it? An unexpected emergency can be a real pinch. Okay. But when we're talking your residence on the backdrop of this is your residence, $400, pay it. All right. Moving on here. It says here the HOA sent her multiple letters, but she never received them. She acknowledges $400 debt. I just repeated that. The board moved ahead with punitive action, acquiring a lien on her property in February 2021. I remember this was just published in March this year. 2 months later, she received a letter saying she owes $1,200. Yes, probably late fees and stuff, and was told foreclosure proceedings would soon commence. Makes sense. You owe $400. You didn't pay it. Now you owe $1,200. I thought it was a joke. Sanders told the station. Why would she think it was a joke? You know you owe $400. You know when you don't pay your HOA fees, it increases with late fees and penalties. Didn't say we like it. Okay? Didn't say we like it. So you know that. So, and you acknowledge the $400. So what's the, I thought it was a joke. What part of the joke did you think it was? You can't tell me, truly. I mean, I understand that some people are a bit naive about how HOAs work, but come on, she's an older woman. Okay, she's not a 20 or even a 30 something. All right, she looks to be my age. Scrolling down, it wasn't a joke, and Sanders would lose her 3,300 square foot home. That's a nice size house. It was sold, according to county records, for a paltry $49,000. So somebody scored a deal on that foreclosure. 3,300 square foot home for $49,000. But the indignity didn't stop there. In case you don't notice, I do this stuff kind of casually. All right. 5 months later, the new owner flipped Sanders' home for $850,000. Wow. Okay, so the new owner flips it. So they probably made improvements. Oh my God, it's devastating for my children, she said. I don't wish this on anyone. Well, if it was so devastating for your children, why didn't you pay the $400 fee? Oh, geez. You know what, guys? Sometimes we put ourselves in the most ridiculous situations, and then we go look for someone else to go blame. You got kids. Why would you allow a $400 bill to get in the way of your kid's roof over their head? You acknowledge the bill. You tell me that you don't understand late fees and stuff, kind of like renting 101. Okay, so they flip it. It says here, so she doesn't wish this on anyone. The wedding, let's just say the HOA. The HOA has declined comment, but their actions were entirely legal, leaving Sanders with no recourse. Yes, their actions are legal. Not saying it's fair, not saying it's right. Trust me. Okay. Currently, it is North Carolina. Okay, currently under North Carolina law, HOAs have the authority to place a lien on a property if the homeowner doesn't pay fees and dues. Yeah, and that, by the way, is not Carolina. That's probably most HOAs. Check with your own individual HOA, okay? If the dues remain unpaid, the HOA can initiate foreclosure proceedings. This is actually kind of HOA 101. An HOA can foreclose if fines are unpaid, but usually the goal is to resolve the issue. Lady Sanders is what I think her name is. You had 5 years. Okay, this was just written in March. March this year. Yeah, $400. You couldn't give them $50 a month and call it a day. Homeowners can appeal, but otherwise their options are limited. What are you going to appeal? If it's written as the law is, you don't have an appeal to make. And it talks about North Carolinians are considering a bill that give homeowners increased rights. Blah, blah, and blah, blah. Okay, let's go back to this lady here. Close your eyes. I'm scrolling. Okay, let's go back to this lady here. All right. I don't feel sorry for her. And I'm going to tell you why. This was solvable. See, the people that my heart goes out to are people who are in situations that are near impossible to solve, where you look at and you go, this is unjust. Okay. It involves, and really, to some extent, it really doesn't even involve how much money there is. It really almost doesn't. But I think part of me, for the really to get the heartstrings, it's really got to be like, man, nobody could possibly pay that. It's not fair because HOAs, they've screwed over a whole lot of people. Okay. I'm fully aware that I live in one, and I make sure my music volume is turned down. I make sure that, I follow the rules, and I check in with my HOA. We have like another company that runs the money and stuff, which I think is the smartest way to do it. There's a third party that runs it. Okay. Our HOA board does not get the money. It's all to run through a third party. And I can pull up everything I've ever paid on the computer. That's the way it's supposed to be. She's sitting here trying to play the fiddle of, oh my goodness, this is so unfair. I was living in $850,000 home and they took it from me. May I please the court? Okay. She wasn't living in $850,000 home. Her home was not worth $850,000 when she lived in it because she didn't have the money. And how do we know? Because she allowed $400 to come between her 4 kids and the roof over their head. See, it's easy to look at something and go, oh man, she was living in this home was worth $850,000. No, it wasn't. If I took my apartment, okay, I do call it an apartment, even though it's a condo. I call it an apartment, all right? It's just condo is just a fancy word for apartment. Let's get real, okay? So if I were to take my place and I were to sell it just as it is, I'd probably get around, I think, don't follow Zillow, anyone, okay? But according to Zillow, if I drop it down a little, probably around 160, maybe 75. It's a 2-bedroom, 840 square feet, okay? That's what I might get for it. But let's say somebody else buys it. Okay, let's say, just honestly, let's say they buy it from me and they just boom, they just like totally fix it up. I mean, they outline the windows. They do things that I could only dream of to do, and I put 15,000 into it, sealing the floor because I wanted to get rid of the popcorn ceiling. All right. And I want new floors and paint, all that stuff. But let's say somebody else came in and they dropped another $15,000 and then they turned around and they sold my condo for $300,000. Can I rightfully say, oh my God, they just took my condo and they sold it for $300,000. I could have had $300,000 on it. No, I couldn't have, because I didn't have the money to fix it up to make it a $300,000 condo. See, here's the problem I see here, family. We've got a story here where there is actually no story. Think about it. She lost her house because of her own actions voluntarily. And like I said earlier, sitting and denying, playing the, oh my goodness, well, I never got a bill. Don't matter. You knew the $400 existed. You can walk yourself right to the HOA and pay it. Now, we can all debate, argue, and say, but maybe that wasn't a valid fee. Hey, look, when you're talking the roof over your head, you got 4 kids, you pay the fee, you can negotiate it all later. In other words, don't give the HOA that little claw that they need to hang you up and to hang you out to dry with. Okay, don't give them that. She didn't just give them the claw; she gave them her entire house. But really, to some extent, in my opinion, it's like if they're looking to, for me to heart bleed over this, I'm not. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at it kind of going, that kind of stupid. It was a stupid reason to lose your place. It really was. And while it's true that, foreclosure is going to clearly drop the house value of what it was. Okay, so maybe that $3,300 home could have sold for, I don't know, $300,000. We'll even go $400,000. We'll take half of it. The bottom line is, she didn't lose an $850,000 piece of property, as I believe the story would like us to somewhat believe. That's not what she lost. And if it's because of money, I'm willing to bet that $3,300 with 4 kids, and I don't know if there's a husband, but I'll leave it at that. Okay. I don't think she had the money to maintain the house very well. And I think, if it pleases the court, the evidence shows that, because she let $400 come between her kids and the roof over their head. Sometimes I think we read stories and they really want us to just, tug at our heartstrings. And really all I do is, if I don't get mad over it, I just sit and I go, are you kind of stupid? There is no story here. The most that I can see for story, if I absolutely had to, yes, I agree with her in the sense of she wants to teach people about HOAs and the power that they have. But here's the problem I have. This is kind of HOA 101. Rack up HOA dues. They can put a lien on your house, and the dues that you have paid into the HOA can be used to kick you out of your house. So the moral of the story is, try not to rack up HOA dues. And I would almost stretch to say that really, she probably had no business being in this house. This house was too much house for her. She should have been downsized. And how do we know? Again, if I can address you to the title article, $400 HOA fee. There is no story here. Just kind of a somewhat foolish woman that didn't pay her $400 and decided that she was going to deny it. She never had an $850,000 house, ever. and looking at how she handled this situation with the $400 HOA fee, I think the house she was in, she was probably lucky to live in it as long as she did. Honestly, I don't think she lost anything. In reality, I think she probably lived more lavishly than she could afford to begin with. Jay Rife was sitting in his pickup truck on the outskirts of Las Vegas when he answered a phone call that would permanently alter his life. A man from the federal government was on the line and told him that the loan he had taken out so his son and daughter could go to college had come due. The monthly payment was $1,200. I thought I was going to pass out, said Rife, who was making $13 an hour as a maintenance worker. I hung up the phone and just kind of sat there for an hour trying to figure out what I was going to do. He tried to avoid telling his wife, Tina, wanting to protect her from the possibility of being plunged into poverty, but it wasn't a secret he could keep. I think we both sat and cried for a while over it, said Jay, who is now 64. All right, really quickly, this story was about 5 years ago. He worries about them being plunged into poverty. But unfortunately, with Parent Plus loans, they don't take a look other than just a quick glance at your credit score. That's really all they look at. It's a quick glance at your credit score. Is your child going to a school that is approved for federal loans? And they give you the money up to each year's tuition cost for each year. So Jay here is making $13 an hour. I have to be honest. I actually read this story, probably a little over about 3 years ago, when this was a student loan Chit-Chat channel, and I read it to my audience. But I'm rereading it, not just to your benefit, but to my benefit as well, as I have gained so much knowledge, both technically, personally, and stuff, dealing with student loans, that I really think this article is worth reading again. It is important that we understand that Parent Plus loans, the reason people feel they are predatory is many parents feel the only way out for their child to get educated is for the parents to go severely in debt to the point that it ruins them. He's making $13 an hour, and he's worried that a $1,200 student loan bill is going to put him into poverty. What he and his wife fail to see is they are already living on poverty wages, in my opinion. You've got two grown kids, obviously college-age kids. You've got a mom and a dad. Dad is making $13 an hour. That is less than people make here working at McDonald's as a new employee, judging from the help wanted signs that I see around Tampa for new employees, shift workers, starting at around $15 an hour. Now, again, this story was 5 years ago. But what was going on 5 years ago? Pandemic time was 5 years ago. Right around there. It's sad because he's in poverty and doesn't see that he's already in poverty. So he takes out a student loan. And part of this may say, how is it that someone can take out student loans when they know they can't pay it back? But let me remind you of something. People on six-figure incomes are struggling to pay back student loans. And I think what it comes down to is, to some sense, is there a morality question? Is there a moral question in the sense of, can only, the only people who can go to college are people who are wealthy. The only children who can have a break are the children of the wealthy. My thoughts and my experience have changed a lot since I first read this a few years back. So that's the situation. He's afraid to tell his wife, and they're crying. Taking your kids through college should not wind up with you in tears, yet we know over and over and over it does. It winds up parents killing out their 401k account, cashing out their retirement, killing off any financial future that they have. So then what do they become? A burden possibly to the children. And the fact that they're crying over it also tells you that there was no planning, there was no budgeting. But let's be honest here. If we're talking about a father who is making $13 an hour, I'm willing to bet his education, I'm just going to take a stab at it, okay? The education's probably not real high, possibly around middle school, okay? Their business knowledge of how money works, correct? All right, moving on. 18 years after that phone call, the couple lives paycheck to paycheck, still struggling to scrape together the monthly fee. Let's stop. 18 years. They're living paycheck to paycheck. It's 2025 now. It's June 2nd, I believe it is. Guess what? They're still paycheck to paycheck. Nothing's changed, and nothing will change. I feel like I'm stuck in it until I die, he says, sitting next to his wife, whose face draws down in disbelief when they discuss it. The couple's original $40,000 loan to cover the cost of their son and daughter attending public universities in Indiana, where the family lived at the time, has snowballed in 18 years with interest rate as high as 8.5%. Their bill now stands at more than $100,000. I don't know about you, this just gives me goosebumps. I think it's because it's like a flashback. Because like I said, I read this article 3 years ago, and I even presented it on this channel before it became Consumer Debt Chit-Chat. But the depth of understanding that I have of it today goes beyond the numbers. It taps into the emotion. Because my $110,000 was forgiven in 2022, and I recognize how close I came to having a retirement that could be saddled with $130,000, $40,000 in student loans, because the $110,000 that I had in 2022 when it was given would have continued to have accrued interest, and I would have continued to have paid the income based, and the interest would just continue to accrue because, as you know, income based doesn't cover interest for most people. So I'm understanding this at a 3 years more growth level, I guess you might say. 3 years more sensitivity level. I mean, I was obviously sensitive to it at the time, but I think as this channel has grown, as I have grown to understand my own financial predicaments and to have worked myself out of it and stuff, I think the one thing that scares me so much about student loans for other people is, guys, I wasn't sure how the heck I was going to get myself out of it. I did not see a way out of paying $110,000 in student loans, plus saving for retirement, plus trying to pay off for residence, plus all the other just basics of living. I'm not asking to travel. I'm not asking for fun stuff. I'm just asking for the basics of living. And having a $110,000 student loan, I didn't know as a teacher how the heck I was supposed to get myself out of it. And I realized something. I couldn't, and I wasn't going to. Short of a miracle happening that was going to change me financially, it wasn't happening. So their loan went from $40,000 to $100,000 with interest at 8.5%. He makes $13 an hour. And again, that's 5 years ago. The Reifs would have lost their house if they had been forced to make the original monthly payment. So they negotiated with the government to get it down to $733. Still, it's more than their mortgage, and it doesn't cover the interest, so the amount has continued to grow. I want you to understand something. Young people who are going off to college this fall, don't put yourself in this position. Let me tell you something. If one person wrote me, 2 years from now and said, you know what, Carrie, I saw your channel. I really thought about what you said. And because of you, I'm not stuck in $50,000, $100,000 worth of debt. I decided to change something around. You know what? All the years I've been on this channel would have been totally worth it. Because I've been on here. We're going into year 6. Absolutely worth it. Let me tell you something. Okay? This is what I've been preaching. See, you young people think, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but a lot of young people think that they're the only ones going through this student loan stuff. Like, how could they be the only ones to be, doing income-based and the interest keeps stacking on? I want young people, I want you to see that this has been going on for decades. It's just nobody told you. Nobody informed you. They played off your naivety, okay? Because banks have a lot of money to lose by you not being in student loan debt. This has been going on for generations. It's just you, Gen Z. You're just learning about it. Gen Alpha will learn about it. Millennials, okay? They definitely learned about it. This couple, just a hard-working, blue-collar class couple, working to get their 2 kids through school, $100,000. Yeah, and that's $733. If it were not a Parent Plus loan, it would probably be cut in half, because my 110 came to a payment of about $300, maybe $350. But I think about when I retire, oh my God, take 350 out of my budget from Social Security just so I can be income based. That's a lot of money when you're retired. That's a food budget. For some seniors, 350 is the food budget for the month. For some people, 350 is the cost of their medication. My arthritis medication, I had no idea that freaking Celebrex is, I guess I can break my own HIPAA rules because I don't care. That Celebrex, I think, is something like a ridiculous $200 a month if I didn't have insurance. Instead, I pay like $20. So there's a lot to lose. Reading on, Jay and Tina are among the 3.6 million parents who currently have federal loans designed specifically for parents who don't have the money to send their kids to college. Even when students take out their own loans, the Parent Plus program enables parents to borrow more to meet the full cost of the college. I want to stop right there. Do we not find it a bit odd that that sentence says the Parent Plus loan program enables parents at what cost? To your retirement? To the ability of you to live alone in your old age versus having to move in with your kids, if your kids will even let you move in with them? To your kids having to fork out some of their retirement money so they can help pay off the Parent Plus loan that you took out for them because they carry so much guilt that they see their parents hurting? The cost is so high. And, I'll be honest, folks, it breaks my heart because, I think to myself, if I were a parent and I had kids and I knew that one of the only ways out for them to be able to get into the good jobs was to have an education. But here's the sad reality. There is no fair. Here in the United States, we have no fair system for anybody of any socioeconomic class to go to school. And I have not discussed this now, and I will not discuss it until it passes the Senate. But, there's that big, beautiful bill that Trump is doing. No, I'm not being political. I'm being factual. On this channel, I don't get political. I get factual. Okay, so that's that big, beautiful bill. And I believe that within that bill, there are some changes to the student loan. And one of the big things is whether or not to cap student loans at $150,000. The reason you have not heard me discuss it on my channel is, well, I have to be honest, there are only so many hours in a day, and I really like to focus on things that have been passed by law versus us sitting around spending time, thinking about whether it could or could not. So I would rather wait. If it gets through the Senate, trust me, I'll be all over the top of it on this channel. But for right now, it's just stuff that's going through and it still has not passed. And there are plenty of other channels talking about that. So that's why I have not addressed it. Okay. But trust me, I know what's going on. It's just I don't want to waste time on my channel addressing something that's not yet passed. Okay. I don't like to sit and play hypotheticals too often. All right. So it says here that the Parent Plus loan enables them. If this is enabling, it's kind of like, man, if this is what you call a friend, then I don't need a friend. Oh, and by the way, I have a smaller microphone now. It's really tiny, so no more big herky mic in the camera. So that's kind of cool. All right, moving on. All right, these families now collectively owe the government more than $98 billion. Okay, and then it goes through stats. I don't like to read every little thing. Again, you can find it in the description box. Okay, we're more stats. Okay, continuing on. Unlike student loans with Parent Plus, it's difficult to get a payment plan based on a family's income. That means if a parent loses a job or suffers a significant pay cut, they may be stuck with monthly bills they cannot afford. People, you cannot confuse Parent Plus loans with a standard student loan, which is why I believe the Parent Plus loans, don't touch it. Don't touch them unless you can just write a check and pay it off. It does not go under the same perks. More than 1 in 8 parents will default on the loans, according to the most recent government estimates. Last spring, in the face of the coronavirus pandemic induced economic meltdown, the federal government allowed students and parents with college degrees to temporarily stop making payments without accruing interest. That we are aware of. And here's an interesting thing on that, and I believe I'm quoting this correctly. I believe less than 1% of student loan borrowers actually made payments during the pandemic. I believe less than 1% actually made payments. Now then, with me having the PSLF, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness, only reason I did not make payments on that during on my student loan during the pandemic, the only reason I didn't make payments is because they allowed those months off to count towards our 120 payments. But mark my words, had the government said, hey, no one has to pay anything right now, it's not going to count, the pause months are not going to count, and we will pick up your 120 again down the road, or you can continue making your payments and continuing having it count towards the 120. I have witnesses. I have friends that are witnesses that will tell you I would have continued making the payments because I didn't know how long the 120, I didn't know how long the pandemic pause was going to be. Never would I have guessed it'd be near 5 years. I would have thought maybe a couple months and then maybe a year, 2 years, 3. No way would I have guessed 5. And I would have paid the entire time because there's one thing I have learned about budget and money and setting goals. All time passes. And you have a choice. You can either make time pass in your favor, which means 2 months, 5 years from now, you can find yourself in a better spot, or you can choose to do nothing. And when time passes, you will be in the same spot, if not a worse predicament than you were already in. My rule, and it's something that has gotten me through a lot of financial hiccups, all time passes. But the question is, what am I doing with my time right now so that I can make the future better? I'm very passionate about that because I genuinely believe, it's what's gotten me through a lot of stuff, including divorce, including bankruptcies. All time eventually passes. And for those who like to throw in, because, you always got a few of those, well, I could be dead. Hey, you know what? That time passed too. And maybe anything I've done that has been good will help somebody else. I don't use death as an excuse to not save or to not plan. Well, I might not be around to spend that $100,000 that I want to save up over the next, 5 years. Okay? So you won't be around. Leave it to somebody that you love and that you think would appreciate it. All right, continuing on. The Parent Plus program was originally designed for higher income parents for use at private colleges, and repay was seldom a problem. Stop. Okay? I should really do this as a podcast. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't know the history of Parent Plus. It's not the god-awful thing that we saw now. Parent Plus was actually very simple. And yes, it was meant for the wealthier. You know what? Here's the thing, folks. Sometimes we just have to admit we are broke poor. Sometimes we just have to admit if we're not broke poor, we cannot compete with people who have more money than us. And if you think your butt's broke, I guarantee it to you there's somebody who's in a worse situation than you're in. I've always said to myself, when we think about poverty and being broke, if you're stuck on the street, the person who has a cardboard box looks like they have a mansion compared to you if you have nothing. And then you take the cardboard box and somebody else has got a tent, you see, and then somebody else has a car to sleep in, and then somebody else has an RV. You see, it's you have to realize, short of you being flat on the street with nothing, and I seriously doubt you are if you're probably watching this channel, to be totally honest. Not saying that's not possible. Feel free to leave in the comments if you are, maybe we could start a GoFundMe for you or something. No, I'm not going to start a GoFundMe account for anybody. I'm sorry. But here's the thing. I think oftentimes we on the lower end of the financial totem pole, we have to understand that always trying to mimic a program or benefit that's given to another group of people, if we try to mimic it, it could actually hurt us. And that is basically what happened with the Parent Plus program. Okay, they tried to say, okay, you broke people at the end of the totem pole. I'm counting myself in it. Okay, don't think I'm not. I'm a teacher here. Okay, you broke people at the end of the totem pole. You want to try to be like the wealthy, so we're going to give you the same benefits. Did it work? Of course, it did not work, because different programs need to be in place for different financial, socioeconomic classes of people. Parent Plus program was not built on that idea. Parent Plus program was built on one size fits all. Nothing was adapted or changed so that Mr. Riff here in the article, nothing was adapted to say, whoa, he only makes $13 an hour. He wants to send his kids to school at $40,000. But this program is designed for wealthy people. Wealthy is not a curse word, okay? It's not. If you are wealthy, I congratulate you, all right? People think that just because somebody's wealthy, that's some big curse. It's not a curse. Okay. But we need to understand, however, that sometimes the needs of the people who have more money are going to be different than the needs of the people who have less money. And that for us to gain the same thing, okay, we can't do a one size fits all. It's fine. Great. Parent Plus program was built for the wealthy. Congratulations. Okay. Now build a Parent Plus program for Mr. Riff here at $13 an hour. Oh, gee, it's not going to look like what it does for the wealthy. Exactly. But no one's figured that out yet. So if people have figured out, there have been no laws to change anything. So here he has $40,000 turns into $100,000. Let's see. So we have here the Parent Plus originally designed for the wealthy. Okay. As the cost of public education rose, more low and middle income families began seeking the loans, desperate to give their children a shot at a secure future. But families' debt load soon increased as well. I leave out a lot of the crediting stuff. Sorry. More than 200 families who made less than $40,000 per year took out a Parent Plus loan in 2016 alone, an increase of more than a third from 2008. And of course, it's only gone up. Continuing on, not only does the government not consider a family's ability to pay when approving the loans, but there is no cap on the amount parents can borrow. A parent could be homeless and still borrow the money as long as his or her credit rating isn't terrible and the loan money is spent on costs related to college. Is this helping anybody out? Is this solving any problems? We're solving one problem, kids go to college, to create another problem, parents are broke. We've set parents up for disaster. I got lipstick on. We've set parents up for disaster when they are trying to do the best for their kids, but end up in financial crisis. We've now saddled many parents with unimaginable amounts of debt. See, here's the thing I don't understand about the government. The government's acting like this is just such a shock. Guess what? The government knew it was going to be like this when they implemented the freaking system for everybody. The government knew it was going to be like this. This is not a surprise. Okay. I mean, the government's acting like, oh my gosh, we're shocked. Really? With all the brains, supposedly there's supposed to be working at the top, creating these programs. You don't think somebody there went, I think we may have a problem if we put a $13 an hour person on there. Of course they knew. But sometimes in the rush to make everybody equal, we make things incredibly unfair. Scrolling down. Like Tina and Jay Riff, parents aren't racking up this debt just to send their kids to high-priced private colleges. From 2009 to 19, the amount of Parent Plus loan money flowing to public universities each year more than doubled. Oh, you can bet. The public universities love that. Remember, you are nothing more than dollars. Your dollars to banks, your dollars to a school. The Rife's daughter, Stacy Johnson, who is now 41, got a good job as a nurse after she graduated. She is managing her own student loan payments, raising a family, and sending her parents what money she can to help them out. So basically, Stacy's family is having to suffer. I mean, maybe not, greatly, but they're having to suffer because she's trying to pay her parents back for this Parent Plus loan. This isn't fair. It's what did they call it? Generational poverty. Yeah, maybe she makes good money as a nurse and she can afford, I don't think it says how much that she sends them. But okay, so let's just throw a number out there. It's a $733 Parent Plus loan. Let's say she gives them $300 a month. Well, here's the kicker. That's $300 a month she could be sticking into an account to help her own kids get through school when they get older. You see how this works? Nobody can look at the way the Parent Plus loan system is set up and tell me that there's not victims, from the youngest to the oldest. The youngest being the kids that are dealing with Parent Plus loans. So Stacy's children are hurting. Guarantee it. Yeah, they may have food, shelter, and all of that, but it's long term. And remember, when we're talking about college and education and student debt, you must think long term. Let's see here, and the reason I'm saying you need to think long term is, one, how are you going to afford college for them? You have to be looking long term. And then when you do take on the debt, exactly how many years do you want to spend to pay it off? Okay, so continuing on, Stacy's managing her own student loan program and raising her family. It pains her to know that her 63-year-old mother, who has become disabled and can no longer work, goes without health insurance so that her parents can make their loan payments. I have said it before. I have said, and I will say it again. I will die on the cross. When you take out these Parent Plus loans, you must put into account how old are you right now and how old are you supposed to be, how old are you gonna be when these loans are paid off if everything runs perfect. And then I think you should add on another 10 years. Okay, I took the loans out at 40, that's gonna put me at 60 when they're supposed to be paid off if I don't miss a single payment. During the ages of 50 to 60, I might experience a job layoff because I am over the age of 50. I might very well wind up with some medical problems for myself. If I do have a job layoff, I'm probably going to have an income pay cut. Oh my God, a lot could happen between 50 and 60 alone. Should you really take out a 20-year Parent Plus loan? You see? Hey, I may not be a parent. All right? But I get it. I get why parents do this for their kids, and I also get the repercussions of it. I am a third-generation school teacher. My whole life has been lived around, I kid you not, graduations, PhDs, masters, the whole 9 yards. It's my whole worldly experience, okay? So her mother is now disabled at 63. Can't make it. And I think the retirement age is even 65 at her age group. My age group can't retire. Well, you can retire at 5 if you're able to afford it. But I mean, as far as, Social Security, okay, 67 if you were born after 1960. So I bet her mom didn't ever think that she might become disabled. Strapping yourself with student loan debt for your kids, not a good idea, in my opinion, if you cannot pay off the bill. And, it's easy for people to go, God, these parents, are they just dumb or crazy? I don't think it's any more dumb or crazy than what I did, going and getting 2 master's degrees. And it's like, gee, Carrie, you just kept racking up that student loan debt. Yep, I did. Till it hit 85,000. It's because when you want something so much, whether it's for yourself or for your kids, you turn off the financial part of your brain. And this channel is designed to help you think about the financial part of your brain. So it says here, quote, "They fulfilled my dream," said Stacy, her voice strained with concern. Stacy saying that her parents fulfilled her dream to allow her to go to school, but it's affected them. I don't think that parents should have to jeopardize their future to put their kids through college. That's absolutely true. Since Johnson graduated from Indiana University in 2001, the parent loan crisis has gotten worse, especially for parents whose children attend public universities, the ones that are supposed to be financially accessible to state residents. Yeah. Don't think for a minute that just because you go to public school that everything is great. I went to public school. Okay, I went to the University of South Florida. I loved the school. Loved my professors. Okay? I wasn't responsible in understanding the debt. And let's keep in mind I was in my 30s. Okay? All right, let's see here. We're growing and growing on. All right, guys, that is the end of this. Happy Monday evening. We're going to look at an article by Business Insider. It was published in 2024. The author is Noah Scheidlauer. The Business Insider article is titled, "A Gen Xer with an MBA Can't Get a Job Despite Over 1,500 Job Applications." He said his degrees have been useless. Here we go. Quinoas, a father of 4 who lives in a rural part of eastern Pennsylvania, said he struggled to land a long-term job in tech or counseling. He has held part-time positions and built his own inventory software to sell to companies, though he rarely gets interviews, even after redoing his resume 24 times. Quote, "I wish there was an easier way, but traditional ways of looking for employment have been overshadowed by artificial intelligence and lack of human interaction," Quinones said, noting his applications are likely thrown out due to his lack of recent work experience. Quinones is one of many Americans with traditional work credentials who can't land a decent, paying, stable job. This comes at a time when getting a college degree is much more necessary to landing a well-paying job. Quinones shared his difficulties with securing work, as well as some reasons he may be falling through the cracks. Now then, really quickly, before I continue on, if you did not see the upload that I did earlier today, I will be attaching that at the end. It is titled, "Her $500,000 Private School Degree." It's a series of TikToks, and I focused on that one as well. So go ahead and make sure at the end, don't go now, But when we get done, then you are excused to go and do that one. All right. Also, really quickly, I will have the description. In the description box, I will put down where this article is from so you can read it without interruptions if you wish. All right. Here we go. A rocky but successful start. Quinones said he had a difficult upbringing with an abusive stepfather. He lived in various youth shelters and dropped out of school in 7th grade. And he had his first child shortly after entering a transitional independent living facility at 18. At that point in my life, I was trying to change everything and become better because I knew that I would be a father, Quinones said. I started taking things more seriously and tried to figure out what to do with my life. He became interested in computers and found side jobs helping the Salvation Army and other businesses fix their technology. Without a high school diploma, he got a job as the head technician for a computer company in Arizona, then landed a role at Intel in 1999. He worked there as an IT manager for a year before getting laid off. So it sounds like he had a rough, beginning, okay, growing up years, but then it sounds like in spite of not having a college diploma, he's slowly starting to work his way into some sort of field dealing with computers. Feeling behind his peers because he didn't have a college degree, he enrolled at a community college in 2002 where he got his associate degree in computer programming. He moved with his wife and children to Arizona to be closer to his wife's family. Still, he said the job market in Arizona was extremely difficult. He recalled walking from company to company with resumes in hand, which resulted in some job offers. However, he wanted to progress his career. So he enrolled in an MBA program in technology management. He secured a job in New Jersey as the chief technology officer for an import and export company. However, in 2010, 2 years into his job, he faced a challenging family situation that cost him his job, which he said was extremely difficult to recover from. Sounds like, I don't know if there were misdeeds going on, but when someone says it cost you your job, that sounds like it wasn't a layoff and he was fired, probably for reasons that should not be discussed. All right, next section, can't find a job. Since then, he said he struggled to find anything relevant to his skill set and hasn't landed anything beyond a first round interview for IT roles. I do wonder actually how if IT slowly is going to be replaced by AI. Now, remember, this article that we're reading from Business Insider is just last year, it was 2024. Okay. But I sometimes wonder, if IT roles, like if you're going to work in IT, you need to have something to do with AI support and maintenance. He recalled putting up Facebook posts in the early 2010s searching for work only to be met with negative comments. I've walked into local businesses to start talking about work, and I'm told that I would not be happy working there because it is not part of my high-skilled profession. This is even after not including my education, not to become overqualified. So what he's apparently doing is he's leaving out his education on his resume. And, guys, if you think about it, all right, it's kind of like you spend all this money to go get the education. Then you find out you're overqualified. And because you get so desperate, you need a job, you need anything, you have bills to pay. I get it. Okay. I'd be in the same boat. So then you have to take off the very thing you went to go get to help secure you a good job and future and all of that. It's almost like it's really kind of a no-win game. It seems like it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Quinones says he struggled with alcoholism, but stopped drinking 8 years ago. You know what that makes me wonder now? I'm not going to shift the screen around because I don't like to move the screen around too much for you guys because I know it makes people dizzy when the screen moves. So I am very aware of that. You know what I wonder when it said something cost him his job? Remember just about a paragraph or so ago? He said he had some personal struggles, cost him his job. Alcoholism would cost you your job. I am not saying that that is the reason he got dismissed from the company because we don't know. But if you are an alcoholic, okay, and you're having problems, clearly that could be a reason for an employer to say, you can't work here anymore. But I am not implying that that's the reason he was let go, as we don't actually know. Okay. So he says he struggled with alcoholism. He began bodybuilding as his therapy. Thank you. Yes. Bodybuilding as therapy. As you know, I am a weightlifter. Okay. And he took part-time positions just to stay afloat. He created an inventory management software program. Additionally, he became, whoops, I just switched the screen. Everybody hold on. There we go. Additionally, he printed images with stickers, shirts, and bottles for side income. And he drove for Uber. So he's apparently doing all these little side gigs, including Uber. Does anyone not do Uber or Lyft for a side gig? Keep in mind also, guys, when you do that, keep in mind with the wear and tear it's doing to your car. You got to factor that in, okay? Just something to think about, all right? So it sounds like he did a lot of extra side work. All right, continuing on. He said his wife works remotely as a sales supervisor for a company in Arizona, which has kept his family of 6 afloat. 4 people. He's a Gen Xer. So believe it or not, that's like my, he and I are the same age, but we're close to the same age. We're Gen X. So my parents having 4 kids, and it wasn't a big deal. Today, if you're a millennial, definitely if you're a Gen Z trying to have 4 kids, got to make sure you have some deep pockets there, okay? In 2015, desperate for job security, he enrolled in a master's program in family and marriage counseling as a backup plan, though he ran out of financial aid with 4 classes left and dropped out. Geez. So he's one of those people paying on student loans for a degree he does not have yet. Okay, that was in 2015. A few years later, when he considered returning, meaning returning to school, he was told only half his classes counted because of a curriculum change. That should be outlawed. That half of your class, you have, we changed the curriculum, so your classes aren't good anymore. That's as frustrating as anyone who's ever been to college and knows about textbooks. They change one thing in the textbook, one thing, one paragraph. All right. It's a new edition, and you have to go by the new edition because they won't take it from any other way. To me, it's strictly for money. That's just how I feel about it. Unless it is adding something that is a technological necessary upgrade, like, hey, we have a new procedure on how to do such and such, and it's significant. And what's always amazed me is I've thought to myself, when you go buy the new edition book, isn't it something they could potentially, usually it's just a few pages, couldn't they just print that out at a copy center or something like that and just hand you the little supplement? But no, they won't do that. They make you go buy the whole book. Because they also, remember this, they don't want you to go to the bookstore or not necessarily the bookstore, but those discount, share and trade your textbooks. Okay. They want to make that as null and void as possible. I am speaking the truth. Okay. So he enrolled in a master's program. So he goes to school, and a few years later, he comes back and the classes don't count. Okay. He received advice from career counselors. We all know where this is going to go. Okay. He received advice from career counselors to, quote, finish my master's degree in counseling, which is not easy because of the cost. Quinones said, noting he had to pause any further education while recovering from surgery. He added that hiring managers would not give me a chance, even though I had 3 years of education. Is he forgetting something? And we are being kind and sensitive because I'm a Gen X also. Okay. Yes. He's in his 50s. Do I feel like I'm going to be 58 next month? Some days I do and some days I don't. Today, pretty good day, okay? Other than my arthritic knees, all right? But there is something that we need to be honest about. Guys, the older you get, okay, you're competing with people who are younger and younger and younger than you. As my mother once told me when her doctor was half her age. Okay. So he's still in touch with career coaches from his previous universities, and they've offered workshops, resume, and cover letter reviews. Okay, that's great. That's great. We can offer you workshops, resumes, cover letters. The problem is it doesn't fix what you need, and that is you need a job. And I think a lot of the problems today with resumes, and they kind of alluded to it earlier, and that is, guys, they're looked at by computers. They're looked at by computers. And I don't know. I'll tell you this, being 58, I can't imagine trying to job search, okay, trying to get a job today with the AI being the one that looks at your resume. This is why it needs to be word of mouth. Guys, you need to make as many personal connections as possible. Schmooze, wine, dine, tit for tat, whatever. Lawfully, of course, let's do it on the legal end, okay? But I'm just going to go to monster.com. Is monster.com even used anymore? I don't even know if you guys know what monster.com is, okay? But it's a resume place, okay? Resume service online. I'm going to go to monster.com and drop off my resume. it's going to go into the wide, wide beyond, and no one's ever going to see it again. Really, I think now more than ever, folks, you've got to talk to people, got to use those speaking skills and self-promote. And it's hard to do that. It is. For some people, self-promotion is very hard. I understand it. Okay. It can be very hard. All right. And here's the other problem. Self-promotion to some extent is a skill. It's verbal skills. And what is something? I'm not picking on the Gen Zs or the alphas coming up, okay? But there is, I believe, a lack of social skills. That eye contact, looking at you in the eye, letting you know that I hear you and that I'm interested in what you have to say. And when I write you a letter, I write the word A-R-E and not the letter R. In other words, these are skills. I'm going to brag for a minute, but I think Gen X and earlier, we were taught those skills. Okay. But I think for a lot of younger people trying to find a job now, you're trying to use skills that you learned on TikTok and that you learned writing text messages, for 18 years of your life. You see? So trying to find a job. God bless the people who are trying to do it today. Let's see here. So he goes to seek advice from career counselors. Okay, he's in touch with his coaches. Hey, you guys know this is casual. All right. This is not a stuffy channel, not at all. Okay. Why landing a job is so difficult. In total, Quinona said he's applied for about 1,500 jobs unsuccessfully, getting 5 to 10 rejections a day this year. Oh, help me, Lord. 5 to 10 rejections a day. Oh my gosh. Screenshot shared with Business Insider. He's redone his resume over 25 times. I don't have 25 different versions of myself to tell you. I mean, really, does anybody have 25 different versions? I don't. So he's redone his resume 25 times, spending $300 for a professionally created one that yielded 0 interviews. You know what I think part of the problem is, just from what I'm seeing here? Okay, he's done his resume 25 times. Can there come a point where you're just doing it over and over and over again that it becomes mindless and the resume no longer has focus? I got to be honest. And again, I am aware that, I've been out of the job hunting force. Okay. I'm entering my 20th year of teaching, but I do believe, and I tell this kids with writing. Okay. And resumes writing, that's what it is. I tell this with my students with writing. Sometimes you need to stop at the second, third draft. Not always. Sometimes we need to keep going. But there are times, we need to just stop. Because if you keep pushing it over and over again, each subsequent one actually gets worse and worse and worse. Until after a while, you forgot what you were writing about, and what you're writing about makes no sense. So I'm going to be honest. The fact that he's written 25 resumes, that right there to me, okay, as someone who was taught writing for 19 years, something is off. And I'm not saying it's his fault, okay? But it may be the advice he's getting about to keep writing this resume. That tells me that you actually have no focus when you're writing it that many times. Please feel free to disagree with me in the comments, or perhaps point out something that I have not observed, okay? By all means, we are here to learn and share with each other, okay? Just to me, that's an exorbitant amount of resumes to be writing. Like I said, I don't have 25 different versions of myself, I could tell you. I genuinely don't. Okay, so he's redone his resume 25 times. He spent $300 for professional services. All right. There's also the matter of where Quinones' degrees are from. Oh, here we go. Let me roll this up. Okay. His undergraduate studies were completed at American Intercontinental University, a for-profit school whose accreditation has come into question. Have you ever heard of that? American Intercontinental University? That almost sounds like a fly-by-night school. Okay. First of all, you're a university, and I don't know a university that starts with the word American. I just don't. Okay. To someone who's been raised in academia, American Intercontinental University for me would raise bing, 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 bing. Okay. Bells right off the bat that this doesn't sound like a mainstream school. So apparently that school's accreditation is coming to question. If he has any student loan debt, and I don't think they discussed that in this article. Okay, but I'm willing to bet he does. All right. But if he does, and that school becomes unaccredited, he should, I hope, get his money back. I don't know. Meanwhile, he's got his MBA through the University of Phoenix, an online program. All right, everybody stop. This is where I got my master's degree in organizational management, was at the University of Phoenix. And the University of Phoenix has been up and down in its accreditation. I will tell you, I loved my instructors, though. I have to be totally honest. I think oftentimes it's not the fault, it's not the instructors, it's the people at the top who are building the curriculum and all of that. The instructors are being taught, hey, we teach this, okay? But the University of Phoenix is where I went, and like I said, I'll be honest, it has up and down, for accreditation. Well, it's still accredited. It's just reputation wise. I'm glad my master's in English is at the University of South Florida. I feel much better with that. So basically, what he has here, remember, he's applied for 1,500 jobs and he can't find work. So he's got here two master degrees. Okay, excuse me, his undergraduate. He has an undergraduate and a master's degree, both from schools that are somewhat questionable. And like I said, I went to the University of Phoenix myself. By the way, University of Phoenix has held its accreditation after it got through that horrible slime of a mess about classes, and they had to refund a bunch of people and stuff. Okay. Quinona said he's in a middle ground. He's overqualified for many entry-level positions, but underqualified for jobs in his field. He acknowledged that hiring expectations have skyrocketed over the past few years. He even tried removing some educational background on his application to seem less qualified to no avail. All right, let's stop here for a minute. Let's look at this phrase right here. He's in a middle ground. He's overqualified for many entry-level positions, but underqualified for his job in his field. Here is the problem, okay? He has not actually worked in his field yet, from what I can tell. Okay. It's like he's dabbled in the field, and the positions that he's held, if they were semi-professional, from what I can tell, please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. All right. But from what I can tell, he's not held a bona fide, full-time, successfully for a few years job in this field of study. He's not done that. And how old is he? That's right. He's in his 50s, probably mid to late 50s. That's a problem. We like to sit and we like to tell people, oh, it doesn't matter what age you are when you go to school. Follow your dreams. At this point, I would say, no, that's probably not a good idea. Sometimes we have to understand that maybe a dream that we wanted in this life is best reserved for the next life, so we don't financially bankrupt ourselves and wind up having our kids be put in a horrible financial situation of caring for you, either under your own home or under their roof. There is such a point, and I know we don't like to admit it, guys, there is such a point, in my opinion, where, I'm sorry, that dream that you wanted to chase, that opportunity is gone. And to try to get it is going to cost you immensely. The price will be too high. So perhaps it's, for the next life. There is nothing wrong, in my opinion, with saying, hey, guess what? It's a little too late to follow this dream. Because guess what? You can create other goals, other dreams that aren't going to financially bankrupt you and aren't going to get you 5 to 10 rejection letters a day. Could you imagine waking up to that? Holy cow. So yeah, he says he's overqualified for many entry. That's true. But I think the part, like I was saying, the part about where he's underqualified for jobs in his field, it's because they don't see him yet as having had professional experience. And don't forget, he's competing with the up-and-comers that are in their 20s, just getting out of school. And he's also competing with the 30 and 40-year-olds who have held that professional position for years, if not decades. You have to look, you guys, when you guys want to chase your dreams, okay, people have to look at who is your competition. So oftentimes we wind up in financial debt, or even if it's not financial debt, maybe it's just emotional. Not everything runs around money, but the purpose of this channel, it kind of pretty much runs around money. But we have to understand it's not always financial, but we have to be willing to look at our competition. It doesn't matter how young you feel, how good you think you look for your age, yada, yada. It makes no difference. Who is your competition? And I personally, we'll go further through the article, but I don't think he looked at who his competition was as he was in his 50s going to school. Okay, so he tried removing some educational background. He believes many of his rejections are for positions that companies legally have to post, but to give internal candidates or recommendations. Yes, this is why I said to you, probably half an hour ago, all right? I said to you, you must make personal contact with people. You must. As a matter of fact, when I was in high school, we actually had a class. I took it, and it was, I don't know if they still offer it, but It actually taught you professional skills. It's how I learned to dress, to do a basic resume, to learn how to present yourself, to learn how to type on an IBM, type. Okay. Remember, this is the 80s. Okay. But I learned those skills. And I will tell you personally, I believe, I took lots of classes in high school. I remember very few, but I remember my business class and the instructor, Miss Betty Murphy. Lord rest her soul. I love her so much, but she passed away several years back. Okay. I remember that. That's how much that sticks with me. I remember where I learned these skills. I don't know if they're teaching this to students anymore. Maybe somebody else could put that in the comments too, because I don't teach high school. Do they teach these skills? Do they teach high school students how to write a resume? Do they teach you how to interview, how to dress? Just things to think about. Okay. So let's see. By the way, for those of you who are new to this channel, this is kind of how this channel works. Okay. We just kind of go with the flow. All right. Oh, so he believes many of his rejections are for positions that companies have to post. Yes. Yes. And the older he is trying to find a job, unfortunately, the higher the rejection rate is. That's why I was saying, guys, you got to use your personal skills to get a job. I used to get interviews, he says, for jobs where I beat out 600 people. Yes, but how old were you? Were you an alcoholic? I'm being honest, not being cruel. I'm being honest. Okay. How old were you? Were you an alcoholic? Okay. Where did you live? All of that stuff factors. I literally remember I could be gone from one job and I could have a job within, oh, geez, if 2 weeks passed, that was a long wait. Usually like a wait. Sometimes it was little as, okay, well, I'll just go down the street. And we're talking for office jobs. These weren't, I wasn't working at Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's or anything like that, but just professional, entry level professional jobs. It wasn't hard to get in my 20s. I think it would be hard now. Let's see. He says, now it's hard to get a job when you don't have a foot in the door to interview. Exactly. Again, AI, read your resumes. He also suspects that being Latino may have hindered his job search. Now, I skimmed this when I read it, so I have not read this word for word as I am reading it with you word for word, okay? So let's hear about this. Once a company told him it wasn't accepting new applications, though they gave one to his wife who is white. He also used a shortened version of his middle name, Tony, on an application instead of Marciel, which increased his interview rate. Hey, this is something we don't like to think about, but your child's name will affect their interview. As I said here, their interview rate, your child's name. I'm not going to name names, but I'm just saying it's going to affect it. And that's why I've known people personally who changed their name when they became adults because they were entering the professional world and they didn't want a name that sounded like, they were still, little kids. In other words, they rejected the name that their parents gave them and said they needed a more professional name. I won't say whether it works or not because I've never done it, but I can imagine that the acceptance rate for your resume might actually be better. And not for a topic on this particular video, maybe for another one, who knows? I think they have done studies also on names of sending in resumes. I thought I watched this once. They sent in resumes and they used different ethnic names to see to see who would get callbacks. Same resume, different names, and they just wanted to see who would get callbacks. That'd be interesting. I'm not interested in it enough to put it on this channel, but maybe down the road. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So they gave one to his wife who is white. All right. He added that because technology changes rapidly, he may be behind on the skills companies expect applicants to have, particularly with AI. Thank you. Exactly. Somebody wrote to me earlier today in the comments, and they asked if I would do a thing on AI, people losing their jobs to AI. I think they were asking specifically for white collar. It is something I will consider. Okay. That would probably be something that would take a while to do. So I don't know. If it's going to be done, it'll be done during the summer. Okay. But I will consider it. All right. Given that he lives about 30 miles from a city, he's focused on finding remote positions. Yeah, because he's out a bit far. So that again puts another roadblock between you and the employer. You got, as you get older and you start looking at jobs, folks, we got to look at all the roadblocks, all of them. Oh, you live too far away. You can only do remote. Oh, you're in your 50s, late 40s even. Okay. All these things. Oh, you're not part of the corporate nepotism. In other words, you don't have family that already works there and stuff. Okay. There's a lot of roadblocks. Okay, moving on. If you haven't been employed, let me start that sentence again. He said, if you haven't been employed in a while, I can't magically snap my fingers and make it happen, Quinona said, noting employers may be skeptical of gaps in his work history. Okay. Let me change these. I've been looking at two screens doing this. All right. So let me go ahead really quickly. Okay, I'm going to go back to the main screen. I hope at least I look like I was reading it. I was on two screens. Give me just a second. All right. So here's the thing. Bottom line, 1,500 job applications. I'll be totally honest, knowing that he's had issues with alcoholism, not holding that against him, but it is a factor. Okay. History of alcoholism. He's in his 50s. I don't know enough about the minority, about him being Latino. I didn't feel there was enough evidence to say that that is the reason. I mean, maybe they gave one to his wife because she looked professional. Maybe they gave one to his wife because she, I don't know, spoke better English. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the position was for or why they would pick one over the other. So I don't feel that there was enough information to say that it's because he's Latino. However, if he felt that that's what it was, okay, then his perception of that is what matters, and that's what he felt. So we will leave it at that. All right, folks. That was, how long was that? 29 minutes. Hey, that's not bad for a story that probably takes 3 minutes to read. Oh, don't forget also her $500K private school loan. Yes, $500,000. That's coming up. Probably either up here, or down here, or something like that. You guys have a great rest of your Monday night. See you later. Bye.
My name is Sophia Cotton, and I'm 22. I have a 1-year-old son. I'm a single mom. I make $7.50 an hour at McDonald's. Nothing. I make $230 to $240 every 2 weeks. I've been working there for almost a year. I haven't had a raise since I started working there. They have a slow week, you going home every day. I came into work one morning, I had to be there at 7. And once the general manager came in, she came in like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and she was like, oh, okay, well, Sophia, you can clock out. And I'm like, well, I just got here. She's like, oh, well, we don't need you, labor's high. You can go ahead and clock out. It's not really matter to them if we making our hours and getting paid. I got $261 in food stamps last month. Then they deducted it to $216. To go through the whole month for $216 is feeding my son, me, every day, like feeding breakfast, lunch, dinner. So I'll buy like frozen foods that I can keep in the refrigerator, on the freezer. I don't buy fresh fruits and stuff like that because it's not guaranteed that it'll be eaten all. Make it stretch. Come on. With child care, I get CCIS, which is like covers your child care or any daycare that you would like your child to go to. I do pay a co-payment for $10 a week. His dad's actually incarcerated, so it's like just me. Come on. Safi. I want my son to not have to struggle the way I struggle. He's going to have a good paying job. He's not going to have to pick through anything. He's like, I'm going to do anything he want to do, he'll be able to do. Give me a cup. My number one always is to make sure that my rent is paid, so I make sure that we have somewhere to live. Me and my sister split it. We paid $220 a piece. 1,030 pays $125 of it for us. One of my checks was $238, and it was like the week that rent was due. So it was like I paid the rent, I had no other choice. But then I find myself borrowing and borrowing. So when my next check come, that's my check that I use like to get diapers, my son some clothes. Like that's the check that I use to get those things. So it's like I find myself breaking into that because I have to pay everybody back. I only go to the doctor like if I need to go or I have no other choice to go, I'll go. Did a root canal for one of my back teeth, and it was like, well, you know, if you get a root canal, I think they told me it was like around $300 something, but they needed like a down payment. Like I couldn't, either I had to pay the whole thing or put down like half down payment. So I'm just like, okay, well, how much would it be like to pull a tooth or whatever? And they like, oh, well, it's free to pull a tooth, but we'd rather not pull a tooth because it's savable. And then I'm like, well, I'd rather you pull it because it's like I can't pay for it, but it's bothering me and I don't want the pain, so I'd rather you just pull a tooth. It's not really what you want to do, but it's what you have to settle for because you can't afford to get the right dental care. If I wasn't getting like rent, assistance, food stamps, or child care help, I think I would still be like living in a shelter or something because I wouldn't be able to pay rent and take care of my son and, you know, make sure he clothed and fed off of the checks that I've received from McDonald's. Come on, eat. It bothers me that I have to rely on government help, and I know that they making billions and billions of dollars. Like, it's like, why should I have to rely on them when I'm working for you? I should be able to rely on you to pay me for doing the things that you want me to do for you. And I believe that sooner or later it'll change and I won't be struggling and I won't have to, you know, pick from eating and buying my son something. Like, I'll be able to do both.